Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Ritchie of the MHRT Network. Yes, I look a little different because I've cropped the beard for today's show. It was about time. And don't worry, it will be back in full working order in about a week and a half, just because I am exactly like Wolverine. And so let's move ahead with this week's show as we move on to the review of week 3 of the NFL, which is under our belts. It's crazy that we were just talking about wanting football to start up again, and no sooner has it just started up, we are already
Q1, basically.
We're already at Q1, the end of Q1. It's nuts. So anyways, guys, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Super interesting season so far, some highs and lows, all that sort of thing. We'll review the division in our week 3 matchups in just a moment. First off, quick intros. Over to my left or right, depending on which way you are facing your screen, is the real Alex Givens. You can catch him on Arrowhead Addict, all the content, written things there. His articles really are the best over there. I'm not going to lie. They really, truly are. And then you got Lightning Fast Fantasy Podcast, which is coming directly after this show with Coach and Monsieur Alex Givens on the Lockdown Defense network there. You can go ahead and catch both of those guys there. I have to follow both Coach and Alex to see how they're doing in fantasy because I might not recommend them anymore if they're just losing. And then we go ahead and talk about
we're doing all right.
Representing his loss.
That's Robert.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Whatever.
And then we got Jack here directly below me here, repping his Las Vegas Raiders. Jack, thank you for showing up today. We really do want to review your game and everything with your input. I know it's a tough day.
It was hard to show up today.
I promise.
After that loss.
I promise.
How you were communicating.
You'll be okay.
I needed 24 hours to calm down.
I did say that loss would be catastrophic, and was not expecting it to actually happen.
Yeah, dude. And then directly diagonally below the lower right hand or left hand side, depending which way your screen is facing you, is Monsieur Robert, repping his Los Angeles Chargers in the spiffy powder blue jersey.
Yeah, you're not wrong, DZ.
Spiffy really is a great word. Like it's stellar.
It is spiffy.
This is the Keenan Allen carries its own excitement, like that's spiffy.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it really does.
Oh, what does that mean?
It really does.
I don't know.
Yeah. So in a Pittsburgh strip joint. Interesting. I see. I have a few questions about location and injuries. The injuries themselves, I'm not necessarily questioning. It's the location that I am questioning, and I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together. I carried the one, and I'm still
a lot of groin injuries.
Yeah.
A
lot of groins and cramps from dehydration.
Yeah.
And DZ, my biggest question is, if it's burning, it was probably your fault.
Not wrong. Not wrong. It ain't just burning; it's on fucking fire right now.
Yeah. It's that is definitely your player's fault. There is enough remedies out there where that could have you could have solved that particular problem. So anywho.
The chicken strip buffet, maybe it was like a clam chowder place. I don't know.
No, we weren't in Boston. It was Pittsburgh.
Well, depending on location,
those things.
Yeah,
it's a diverse steel.
Or fish tacos.
Especially in the.
It also doubles as Gotham City.
Referring to. So, anywho, as we move on to the week 3 in review, let's get right into it, guys. I'll go first because I typically kind of throw to you guys for the weekend review. I'm going to blast through my
usually
Denver
have
Broncos
some
review.
negativity, so this should be a nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear
nice
this.
Change of pace.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So obviously it was Obviously, it was not what I personally expected in that game. However, in my defense, I did not expect an 11th hour Vita Vea exit, who decided like 18 hours before the game to be like, nope, not playing. It's like, what? Okay.
Kind of big.
You know, we keep on talking about, Jones with, you got like the top 3 or 4 guys in the interior of the NFL. I would certainly put Vita Vea within that top 3 to 4 discussion, like for sure.
He was a running back in high school. So sink in.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Nobody that big should be as athletic as he is.
No.
No. Like,
damn. Yeah. So obviously my predictions and my comments and everything on last week's show were kind of obviously assuming that he was going to play. And, we got the 11th hour, oops, just kidding, exit.
Right.
And he is one of those players that is a game changer. And one of the reviews and looks when I saw the game film back and the plays play out the way that they did is the pocket was virtually completely clean. And one of the reasons why Bo Nix was able to read the field, make decisions, etc., was because he didn't have Vita Vea coming down the middle of the field saying, I'm going to eat you. He didn't have the Bucs Robin to Vita Vea on the field either. He was out with an injury, but we kind of knew he was likely going to be out with an injury ahead of the game. Vita Vea was really the surprise.
Yeah.
And then we also had an issue with the secondary where one of their top secondary players for the Bucs was also out. So for me, as much as I am super happy the fact that we saw Bo Nix look better, we didn't actually see him play against a team that was at full strength and win.
We might have to Aaron Brockovich this situation. Get to the bottom of this.
Jesus Christ, TC.
Come on, Richie, give him some cred, man.
That's good. Sorry. Oh, check yo boobies.
Well, DZ, with that comment, I think you're referring to moobs. But that's fine.
It's a man's ear.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I don't know, DZ. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's so rough right now. We went from pure positivity to God, no, it's burning.
I really wish we had some clips of Robert from a week ago that we could just back on.
Yeah.
Because whatever you were selling last week, man.
Yeah, I was selling health of the team. now it's just all gone.
It looked like you put all your money in NFTs.
Optimism is out the window. Jesus.
So, obviously some things to be mindful of. I was just talking to you guys in the chat, both backstage and via text ahead of the show. Broncos lost Alex Singleton to an ACL. What makes that even more remarkable is not only did we lose him, but he hurt himself in the first quarter against the Bucs, refused to come off the field, played the remainder of the game, and didn't miss a single defensive snap. I mean, just my mind is blown because that is mental fortitude. That is the type of football player I want on my team. That is a guy that has the, that chutzpah in order to be on a football field and actually tough it out and play properly. It is super sad to see a guy like that not on the field. I truly mean this. I want him to bounce back quickly. I want him to be able to heal quickly because I want a guy like that back on my team. Like, it is just that simple.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's been all impressed. He's been impressive this whole season. I mean, he's a beast.
Yeah, he really is. And frankly, he was quite impressive last season as well, if we're going to be perfectly honest, in terms of how he played. He was a tackling machine. Now, I think that kind of speaks a little bit to how poor our defensive line was last season as the Denver Broncos. But having a linebacker that's able to traverse the field and be that sure of a tackler and make those types of plays, I think is a big deal. He has certainly shown to be that guy. So, I mean, I actually can't speak highly enough of how generally well he has played. He obviously has a few, whoopsie moments and that kind of stuff, which frankly, most NFL players will have. But big picture, ultimately speaking, he's been a solid player for my Denver Broncos. Certainly not someone that I would push back on and say, we need him gone. If anything, we need more like him on the roster in terms of how they play. Yeah.
And for new Raider fans who don't know who this guy is, I actually had it in my notes that I never brought up, but Spillane's having an all-pro year, and I wrote on there he's actually having a better season. Mm-hmm. So that kind of gives Raider fans an idea of what Singleton has been doing. Yeah.
Singleton really has had a remarkably good season this year. And it's a shame to see a guy that's overcome so much to come back to the NFL or into the NFL, show out and prove his worth, in my opinion, and then end up with an injury like this. So I really do wish
the
him
green dot
recovery.
See the green dot guy?
No.
Okay.
No, he is he's just kind of the Swiss Army knife in the linebacker room, where he's able to go back and forth and back and forth. He has typically actually not really gotten hurt in his career ever. Yeah. Like, generally speaking, like he's been very, very healthy. And so, whoa. All right. Another one.
Canadians in the house.
Ooh, nice.
First Saskatchewan, eh?
There's as many Canadians as there are Charger fans.
It's great to see another Canadian Broncos fan. Hit me up on
Twitter. There's a lot of Canadians.
Only 30 million of us.
Just Canadians that are Broncos fans.
Yeah, there are
30 million.
Yeah, there's a lot.
They're all Broncos fans.
They're all Broncos fans. But I'd be very curious. Was it Nasalik 85? Curious as to which province you're in. I know Alberta has a huge Broncos following, and there's actually quite a number of Broncos fans here in Ontario, where I am.
Snowy America.
Nice. Yes, it really is. I actually live in one of the major snow belts in Canada, and so I will venture to take a picture outside when I get the first snowfall. I expect the first snowfall to be somewhere in the vicinity of 2 feet. Oh, wow. Dude, that is north. Good for you.
I thought he was setting something up to be like, what's that? And he'd be like, these nuts. That's what I thought.
So in Canada, like, you know where Alaska is?
Nunavut. Yeah.
No, but you know where Alaska is, right?
Yeah.
So across the top of Canada, there's 3 territories. One of them's Nunavut, and that's where he's from. So that's
he's
like super
by
cool.
the North Pole, man.
Yeah, man. He's way north of where I am, man. He's got me beat by a country
We
mile.
found a more northerner than Rich.
Yeah, dude, that guy lives in cold.
Spreading.
Let's put it that way.
And dark.
Let's put it that way.
Is that like where it's dark for like a month straight?
No. Yeah. So basically, Nasalik sees like the cold games that they keep touting being like ridiculous on TV and like Green Bay and stuff.
That's like,
and Nasalik says, "Nasalik, here, hold my beer."
That's July up here.
I mean, does the ground you ever see the ground, or is it always snow?
Depends
in that
on where
area.
you are. You do start to get into tundra as you get depending on certain areas in that region for sure. But that's awesome. You just don't often meet, because it's not a heavily populated area up there, so you don't often meet people from that far north.
That's where I was going, DZ. That's where I was going.
So, anywho, moving back onto the Broncos game, a few quick interesting pieces. We did see some improvement from Bo Nix. He was able to read the field a little bit better. We also saw some improvements in terms of the offensive play calling, slightly more aggressive. And as I stated on last week's show, a heavy dosage of 12 and 13 personnel. That was super, super important to allow for Bo Nix to get the run game going, get those deep passes, and then you're able to break out a couple of those tight ends for crossers and other things, even if they're only used as decoys, because it really does push the opposing defense actually to force covering that middle section of the field. And then looking ahead at the defense, Denver's defense is looking to be like absolutely legit this season. It'll be very interesting to see with the loss of Singleton in terms of where that sets us back, if any. We did actually sign Quan Alexander, who I expect to probably eventually get signed to the 53-man roster to kind of replace Singleton, because he kind of fits that kind of general style in terms of that kind of like mold. And then we also signed another guy from the Titans, last name Jones. I have to go look up his name to get more information on him. But Quan Alexander is obviously the kind of the bigger name with some familiarity with Sean Payton.
I'm actually surprised Seattle let that guy go. He's good.
He's an older player.
He's getting older, right? So he's kind of losing a little bit of kind of what he used to have, but he's still above average for sure. Like he's certainly above average. The only thing I do caution Broncos fans on this, and also, pump the brakes a little bit until we start seeing games stacked that look like what we just saw against the Bucks. When you're playing a team that is depleted with the core players on their defensive side of the ball not there, like for example, it'd be like playing KC with their two main guys gone on defense, right? Like
with no Christian.
How about no tackles, Rich? How about playing KC with neither tackle or no QB? Would you say it's like similar to that?
No, but I would no.
But you can imagine what it'd be like if it was.
Imagine, man. I hate to be that team.
Yeah, I hate to be that team for sure. But the point though is that the Broncos did not start the season well. We did not look good the first two games. There's no secret about that, and I've certainly not shied away from that. I simply would pump the brakes a little bit on touting that the Broncos have completely turned their season around based on a sample size of one game where half the team is missing. Right? Like it's like you need to be balanced in your approach, right? Like you need to actually look at things objectively and not start getting like, high on the hopium and thinking that you can actually, and thinking that you can actually now make it to the Super Bowl because you beat the Bucks, right? Like stop the crap.
I will say
like
though,
the Raiders beating the Ravens and losing to the Panthers.
I will say though, if the Broncos defense plays like that, I mean, there's a little hopium in the air, because the Bucks offense was supposed to be, was playing pretty well going into that game, and they
were, 100%,
they shut them down,
100%.
and I had seven sacks. Had Baker Mayfield look like vintage Baker Mayfield. Like it was a good defensive game for sure.
7 sacks, wow.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. The Broncos defense this year is, as I stated at the beginning, and again, I have enough film and tape on me in terms of what I've said, is the Broncos defense is going to be way better than what people are predicting they're going to be. And the reason why everyone is underselling the quality of the Denver Broncos defense is just because they don't have household names yet doesn't mean that some of them won't turn into household names as they start to put film and tape out there. And I think that's what you're going to start seeing as time progresses here is some of these guys are going to start becoming, the guys that you talk about in terms of, I actually think Alex Singleton was starting to turn into one of those guys a little bit where people are like, dude, that guy's everywhere, like everywhere. Because all you see is a dude with the long brown hair, and he's making a tackle somewhere. Yeah, he's making a tackle somewhere. So, anyways, it was an interesting game. I think that it certainly sparked some it basically turned the doom and gloom around for a lot of Broncos country. That being said, I think we need to calm down. I think we need to assess things objectively and say, all right, we're going in playing the Jets at home, like not like we're playing them at their home. And so that'll be an equally tough game. We need to see what's going to go on there. We're going against a veteran quarterback who's going to be able to probably put some interesting plays together against our defense because he's certainly no dummy. And then to start seeing, one, is our defense really as good as we think it is? I think it is, but we'll see. And then two is, will our team be able to stack things? Will our team be able to take a win like this, and will Bo Nix be able to build on this and continue to do better? That is a legit question because the Jets have a proper defense. This is not a game that should be taken lightly, and I'll get a little bit deeper into that as we go forward into the latter part of the show. But the Bucs and the Jets are similar when they're both at full strength in terms of defensive strength. But the Bucs were not at full strength when the Broncos played them, so it's not an appropriate thing to kind of say, well, the Broncos beat the Bucs, then they're also going to beat the Jets. You're just not playing the same teams when you play one versus the other, at least when the Broncos played.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You're at a point now where the Broncos kind of like in 1 week almost, the entire like complexity of the division or of the season kind of changed because Raiders drop a game to a team that nobody expected to happen. So that's 1-2 right there. You're already even with them. Chargers drop a game to the Steelers. Not surprising that they dropped it, but just the amount of injuries that they came out of with that game, and then they face the Chiefs next week. Obviously the Chiefs 3-0, but that was, to be expected. But I think this was the perfect week, I would say, for the Broncos and for Nix to kind of turn it around, just what happened across the division throughout the week. So, it's definitely going to be a tough week for you guys going into New York, but I think this is going to be kind of like how the Chargers and Raiders have had some of these very defensive kind of sluggish games. I think it's going to be very much a game like that between your Broncos and the Jets. Going to be a ton of defense, going to be not a lot of yards it's going to be points coming out of premium. So I think this is going to be another one. Can Nix just limit those turnovers again? And can he just, coast this ship and let the defense kind of, play for you? And can you steal a score here or there, whether that be a
He said Pacheco is out for 8 weeks.
Yeah, you don't need him.
Come on.
Yeah,
Hollywood Brown has yet to play.
OG.
Yeah, OG. OG, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to bring up the comment. Look, it's no secret that the Raiders and Broncos have an absolute storied rivalry as franchises. I'd almost argue that the Raiders and Broncos is kind of like the most kind of head-knocking, more aggressive divisional rival between all four within the division, which is why it's kind of remarkable that I seem to be at least tolerated by many Raiders fans. And I think that's in part because I'm not sitting there blowing smoke about my Denver Broncos. I'm actually quite realistic about where we're at. That being said, our defense, as I stated from the beginning of the year, is going to be legit. And we have turned out to be just that. We are a legit defense. We really are.
And I'm kind of curious, Richie, on your talk with the defense, of what your offense was able to do and keep your defense fresh. 7 sacks. That's really impressive. I'm curious.
That's why.
What was your time of possession to keep your defensive players fresh this last game, kind of versus the first 2 games? Because it made a huge difference.
So the only stat that I know off the top of my head was that our time of possession was sub 40 in the game against the Steelers, like sub 40 minutes. So it was like 30. I think it was like 33 or 34.
He had 140 rushing yards. That usually
helps. That helps. Yeah.
Right,
It
Robert?
usually plays a big factor. Yeah, 32 minutes
Yeah.
of time of possession. Yeah, it was just the rushing. Because honestly, you're pretty even with the Bucks in terms of third down conversion, total plays, penalties. So it's just the one
But
you guys had to pick.
Alex, the one thing that isn't tracked in some of those stats, but you actually need to go to the next gen stats to look at. The one thing that the Broncos had in that game that the Bucks did not is we converted on second and first down, our first down conversions. And that's huge. Like, that's big time huge, right? Like, so, and Jack, this kind of plays into what your question was in terms of like whether it be time of possession or keeping your defense fresh or whatever the case may be, which is if you're able to convert your first down on a second down rather than the third down, that puts your team in just a way better spot because you're not scrambling to try to force something into place, right? And so the Broncos in the first two games had horrific third down conversion stats. Like, they were awful, like dog water awful. And then in this game here, we were converting first downs on first and second down where we were getting those big chunk, whether it be chunk plays or big runs or Alex, kind of what you alluded to in terms of actually having a rushing attack. And so it was just a completely different game. That's the point, right? It was just a completely different game for my Denver Broncos, which is refreshing. But the question that becomes is that when you build your team around Vita Vea and his Robin, and both are gone in that game when you play the Denver Broncos, well, that you're not playing the same team. Like, you're just not. Like, it is not the same team. Like, that's like playing the Raiders without Max Crosby and saying, hey, we beat the Raiders. And of course, your first comment to me, Jack, and rightfully so, let's just be real, is to say, yeah, but you played without our best player on the field. And it's like, I'm not going to sit there and say, so, like, like it doesn't make any sense. So we need to, and it's not that I want to always be negative towards my Denver Broncos. That's not it at all. It is simple. Bo Nix needs to show steady progression on an upward trajectory, and he actually needs to start doing so playing against teams that are at full strength. So, for example, I don't know of any major injuries against the New York Jets. If Bo Nix plays a game like he did against the Bucks, against the Jets, my comments are totally different. They just are, because you are now seeing that stepped progression that you want to see from a rookie quarterback who's starting to get it and click, right? However, if you see him to start to look more like he did against the Steelers, against the Jets,
oh no,
then it's like, hey, guys, like, this is why it's important to, rest a quarterback or sit a quarterback, let them play behind a veteran, learn the nuances of an NFL football game, and then play him by like maybe week 5 or 6, where he's been able to ask the right questions in the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which we all know is what I was actually pushing for when we started the season. And so that's my point, is I have some hope that Nix may be getting it faster than I was originally thinking he might. However, I will not I refuse to go all the way there, because the NFL is an animal in and of itself, and you need to see the most complicated position in almost all of sports show you week over week more than once in order to show that the dude is actually getting it. I'm sorry, it's just a fact.
I agree with that, but I think this is even more evidence as to why it was right to start him right away, because he's getting all this experience early on, because he's
you're wrong.
Seeing I mean, I don't know. What is Drake May really getting much from Jacoby Brissett? I mean, they just put up 3 points or however many it was, and their offense is probably one of the worst in the league.
You're missing my point, though. What we saw in this game was an offensive scheme change, and Bo Nix play better as a result of an offensive scheme change. Offensive scheme changes as a result of Sean Payton, based on his comments that we heard last week, which I kind of highlighted on the show, very clearly stating that it was incredibly important that he reassess who's doing what and where. It is clear to me that Sean Payton and I are on more similar wavelengths. We're not identical, but similar wavelengths in terms of what we had in mind in terms of what those comments meant. So what that actually meant was more 12 and 13 personnel, which is amazing. Because that's what you need. You need the bigger tight end bodies to be blocking in line to then force the run game to work. You give your quarterback time to throw. There's a whole host of better of options and things that does for your team with a rookie quarterback. So, I mean, that's what I again, a lot of what I was saying last show kind of played out. Does it mean that Bo Nix didn't play better this week than last week? Yes, I actually think it does mean that he played better this week than last week. He actually threw the ball better. He threw more anticipatory throws, etc. But to my point, Robert, is it's a two-pronged or a double-edged sword in terms of what we saw this past game. Bo Nix played better, but he played better when the big-time players on the opponent's team were not present, and those big-time opponents that were not present, that were the best players on that team, happened to be on the side of the ball that he goes against every snap. Like every single snap. And I think that actually makes a difference.
Oh, it makes a big difference when you got a clean pocket. That's for sure.
Exactly. And so that's my point, is that I appreciate with what you're saying. I understand with what you're saying, because obviously he looked better on the field. So, like, you know, the eye test doesn't lie in that regard. But I also think you need to assess more bluntly and maybe honestly in terms of the film and who was on the field. You know, it's like saying, hey, Robert, Justin Herbert banged up. You're probably not going to win. Like, I think that's also a fair comment to say, like, if your quarterback's hurt, you're probably going to be struggling, right? Like, yeah. I think we can agree on that. And like, you know, look at Alex's team. Hey, Alex, Mahomes is not playing next week. Do you think you're going to have a good shot at winning?
Maybe with the defense.
It's like no, probably not. Like you know, you're going to certainly have
this
your
week,
odds,
maybe.
Whatever. God damn it.
But that's the point, right?
Yeah,
is that you have your best players not play.
Right.
Like, as your opponent's best players not playing, like you need to just assess honestly. That's my point. And I think that's an important thing to make. Yeah. And I think that we need to just be honest with ourselves. Trust me, loved the fact we won. It was much needed. Let's just be honest, right? But we need to be very, very careful. And the other thing is,
good point.
Well, the other thing is I would like to point out that the refs that were reffing the game against the Bucs, I would like to know where the random drug tests are. Those dudes look like they were roided out to crap. Like, you know, like those, like that is ridiculous. Those guys were 50 and they look like Rambo.
They got to get jacked up to deal with those guys, you know?
Yep.
Get in my face? Come on.
Yeah.
I guess there's no drug test for refs.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Because, dude, I think they would have all failed.
That's crazy.
Just being honest.
Well, did you see that? And you see the one that when Justin Jefferson had that like 80-yard touchdown and he ran with it and like stopped and changed direction? It was like, damn, he did that better than the corner. Yeah, there's something in the water they're giving these refs.
Yeah,
and the Chiefs jersey too. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
They probably had Chiefs jerseys. I think they're black and white sleever shirts.
Your game, and we'll get into that later. But we're gonna throw over to Robert, talk about his game there.
Oh God.
Go.
Yeah. So this game,
how the
man,
tables have turned.
Jesus Christ! If we could have ever gone from how high we were last week to where we are now, it is just a complete and utter flip. Not even so much because, yeah, I know. I know Jack understands that.
Yep.
For different reasons, but understands it all the same. Yeah, I mean this was the game. You know, it was a low-scoring game, what we expected. Rugged, just smash mouth, just bully ball football. Really, nobody was running this ball well at all. There was really no offense. It was 10-7 going out of halftime. So it about went, you know, according to plan. This is, it kind of exactly what, the kind of game the Chargers need to play. And right on cue, a wild batted tip drill ball by Justin Fields. We pick it off. Shocker, it's Bud Dupree, former Steeler. So it's just shaping up to be another like storybook. Oh, here we go. The Chargers are going to pull off another, rug it out. They were down. They were tied now 10-10. And it was a slow game, but they're going to get a crucial turnover. And, when the Steelers are driving, and this will be when they finally take the game over. Nope. Football God said, not on my watch. You lose Joe Alt. You lose Rashawn Slater. You lose Joey Bosa. And because you're losing all of that, the Steelers pass rush is going to absolutely bend over. Yeah, exactly. Like, right. Jesus. DZ is on one today, man, and rightfully so after that game. But yeah, it was that was basically the beginning of the end right there. Losing Alt and Slater. Already this O-line it's good, not great. The interior O-line of it is awful. Not awful, but Bradley Bozeman is significantly underperforming what I thought he would be able to give the Chargers this year. I thought just a cheap 1-year veteran, he'd be able to provide some solid reps, especially in the run game. But in the pass game, he has just been absolutely atrocious, and we saw it early against the Raiders. But you kind of chalk it up to good D-line, but you just saw it continue as the games progressed. This was another game. Yeah, Pipkins is also hurt, in case you didn't know. I'll just read off really quick this injury report that the Chargers released. And my God, it's just absolutely atrocious. Easy, I need whatever you're smoking or drinking, man, because you're just
He's drinking some bourbon or something.
Yeah, he did say something about bourbon. He's absolutely killing it right now. But yeah, so this is just I'll just read off quickly everybody that is DNP today at practice. Joe Alt, Joey Bosa, Junior Colson, Trey Pipkins, Rashawn Slater, and Otito Ogbonnia. That's not even mentioning the 7 other guys that were limited today. So it is just an absolute just hospital-ridden roster right now.
Infirmary.
Yeah. Infirmary to the max. And obviously with KC coming up this week, that is more than less than ideal. So
Robert, do you guys have a permanent hospital at your stadium? Because this is something that's reoccurring.
Honestly, man, I don't even know what to tell you at this point. My only if the Chargers team doctor's paid by the injury, that dude is rich, and whoever he is, he probably employed Tyrod to stuck the
getting
needle.
a little low.
Yeah, whoever it was the guy that stuck the needle in Tyrod. But god damn, man, it's rough right now, to say the least. Yeah, no, seriously, DZ, that was the beginning. That was a harrowing foreshadowing of what was going to happen in that game when Bosa started calling for the trainers after the first snap. But yeah, I'll get into it a little bit later too when we talk about our next week matchups, because obviously another rival division week, Chiefs and Chargers in LA. It's going to be a lot of guys that are sitting, to say the least. We have our bye week after, because then we roll right into another divisional game against the Broncos. So we need everybody as healthy as can be. I do not want to throw anybody into that Chiefs fire, but get into that as it goes. Running game, non-existent. We kind of expected it to be, though. Obviously. Yeah, obviously Dobbins. was never going to maintain. Yeah,
his MVP status went away pretty quick.
Yeah, he was never going to maintain that level of. I mean, hey, if he's the only sembling chance of us having a remote chance against KC, and he's got to go for over 200, which I just don't see happening. But he's probably the only chance we have of beating KC. But he finally had his first coming down to earth game. 15 rushes for 44 yards, barely not even 3 yards a carry. So it was just rush. Quentin Johnston, if I had to take away any positives, he continues to show why he should be wide receiver 1, and I can't believe those words are even coming out of my mouth right now. But that is 2 straight games with a touchdown. He's got 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Only saw 2 targets, caught both of them for 44 yards, and it led the team tied with McConkey, who saw 3 times that many targets, had 1 more reception than Johnston. But like we said from the start, with Johnston a little, on a serious note, kind of pissed our defense that Fields diced them up. Not a good foreshadow for this Sunday, especially with Derwin out. Yeah, I mean, Fields, it was – we did sack him twice. The defense here's the thing, DZ. The defense played well enough to win because before Patterson came in and because the Steelers did eventually rush for 114 yards on 31 carries, still under 4 yards a carry, but it was significantly less than that at halftime. The Steelers weren't able to do anything with the ball. Najee finished his day with 18 rushes for 70 yards to look really respectable because I'm telling you, coming out of that half, he was at 7 rushes for 9 yards or something. We were absolutely stuffing him. But of course, with the injuries to the defense, you're not able to maintain any offensive drives, so your 3 and outs are quick. Your defense is to keep going back on the field. I mean, it looks a lot worse than what it was, DZ, because obviously they basically had that entire half to just pound on the defense, and I mean they scored 10 points out of their 13 points out of their 20 in the second half. So I'm not shocked by it. I think if Herbert and everybody stays healthy and the injuries aren't what they were, I think it's not nearly as bad. I'm not saying the Chargers are going to straight up win, but I definitely think the Chargers were in control of that game, all things considered, before the injury wheels kind of derailed everything. But yeah, it's early in the season, 2-1. This is why you win those games against the teams that you should be, being the Panthers. And I mean, this is why even this game against the Raiders was even more important, because now you're most likely going to go into the bye week at 2-2, which is what you expected. Just wasn't really sure it'd be from these teams. But regardless, it was, bound to happen. It's just hopefully these injuries aren't season, prolonged. Obviously that Herbert ankle injury is very concerning to me, just in terms of he re-aggravated it a week after he suffered it, and that's never a good sign. When he suffered that injury, I was like, oh God, here we go. It's going to be, he's out for, 3-4+ weeks. He's an IR candidate or something like that. So the fact that his x-rays are negative and he's even out there practicing in any capacity is a huge positive for the Chargers. For all the Charger fans that are saying the season's over, it's done. It's not. We're barely in week 3, going into week 4. Calm yourselves, okay?
Robert,
I know.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Specifically on Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically on Herbert.
All right.
So we know that your former GM went the entire time when he was with your team and never made any in-season trades except for one.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Fine. Cool. I mean, not cool because it basically had you guys not win stuff, but fine. Good news is he's gone. Right? He's not there anymore. So knowing what you know now and knowing that you have Harbaugh at the helm, why is your team not trying to actively pull in a legitimate quality backup quarterback who can step in for 2 to 3 weeks because that's probably what Herbert needs in order to bounce back.
Yeah, well, they did. They did it with Heineke. Now, what they weren't counting on is both tackles being gone when Heineke got thrown into his backup position. I completely agree. You get a back. You get he got sacked more than Herbert did, and he only dropped back twice. Or actually, he dropped back more than that, but he only completed 2 passes. He only threw 2 passes. But I mean, that's the point. You know, you bring in Taylor Heineke with the intent of, if Herbert has to go down, we have a guy that can, steady the ship, keep it afloat. But you're also not counting on both your star tackles being gone, on top of your running game really not being existent. Like, that was probably the worst game for Heineke to get thrown into, just given with everything that was surrounding it. Like I said, the injuries to the O-line. The middle of the O-line isn't great in and of itself. The tackles do a great job of shadowing that and covering for that. And obviously, if you lose both of those guys, and not to mention we even lost our guard, Pipkins, was gone too. He left the game. So there was just a lot that went wrong for Heineke to come in and try to steer that team into win and maybe coast us to a win. And you're obviously not going to do that against the Chiefs. Like, I don't care what backup you have. A backup is not beating the Chiefs. Like, unless Mahomes has the worst game of his career and they turn it over like 3+ times, there's just no way, that the Chiefs are in a tier above their own. So I think, Heineke was a fine option. I'm not mad about it. I wasn't expecting him to come in there and throw us back into a victory.
Well, it's way better than Stick.
Yeah, exactly. Way better than what Stick was giving us. And I guarantee you, Stick goes in there, he throws 2 passes, and they're both pick sixes. And this game's probably like 37-10, and it looks more so like what the Raiders-Chargers game looked like last season. So I'm not too worried about it. I think we did bring in a veteran QB that can kind of steer the ship. It's just everything and anything could have went wrong for him, and it was just a really unfortunate situation for him to start his Charger or to debut as a Charger. Yeah, JC, man, I would. You know what? Weird things have happened 3 weeks into the season, so I would love it if that was the case. But
so there's a song. It was around kind of when I was a little bit younger, and it goes like, and then I got high, and then I got high, and then I got high.
And I was gonna clean my room,
and then I got high. And that comment sort of kind of reminds me of that song a little bit, because when you have, like, look, let's put it this way. Best case scenario for Robert's team. Alt limps out. Actually, Alt won't be able to play because it's an MCL injury, so the league won't let him. You get Slater limping onto the field of a shell of him, as a shell of himself.
No, thank you.
And that's about that. That's best case scenario. And Herbert is going to come out, and he's going to be like bubble wrap man. Like literally walking out like this onto the field in hopes that he doesn't get hurt. That's your best case scenario as a Chargers fan. I know that doesn't sound great because it's not, but that's literally your best case scenario, is that Herbert limps onto the field. Joe Alt hopefully has a super fast recovery and is back in like 6 or 7 weeks. And Slater somehow isn't like season ending and can come back out and play.
You ain't playing as my team, boy.
Yeah.
Who are your backup tackles, Robert?
Trey Pipkins is one of them, but he's injured too.
He's hurt too.
Sorrell,
I thought he was a guard.
Foster Sorrell is one of our backup tackles. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you who the other one is. And here's the thing though, right? Like, we have we have back-to-back weeks. I know it's not actual back-to-back weeks because we have a bye in between, but we have back-to-back games that we play against division opponents. So I think best case scenario is you just sack the KC game, say nobody's playing, go into our bye week, get everybody an extra week of rest and to get healthy.
Alex is agreeing with you right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Put it
100%. Yeah, 100%
Yeah.
he is. It's going to be it's probably, I mean, regardless, even if we all played coming limping out there, the Chiefs are going to coast to 4-0. But
I don't know, man.
I think your best bet is to absolutely sit everybody for this week. Everybody that's injured, I should say. Let Heineke get some reps in with some of the first team guys, some of the wide receivers, and just kind of get that going for the week, because there's no point in forcing it and then they get hurt even further and then you're done for your whole season, and then there's just no point
Do you
anymore
still
after
have
that.
Easton Stick?
Yeah, we still do have Easton Stick. I don't know why the hell he's on the roster.
You should be calling him up and playing him instead of Heineke, because if Heineke's your hope, you don't want him getting hurt too, because then you're done.
Well, if Heineke gets hurt, then it's just meant, the Chargers are just cursed, and we're just we just can't have anything nice, because at that point, if the universe really wants Stick to come in and play, God has some sick, cruel tricks for us up there. Because goddamn, I don't know who the hell wants to watch that guy play football. I don't care who you're a fan of, unless you're the other team.
And Robert, just because JC Weaver is actually Orange and Blue Network and MHRT Network contributor, he's got a couple shows that he contributes with on our network as well. I just want to quickly speak to his comment with regards to the Chargers, and if you want to elaborate, feel free. Time of possession battle requires that you're able to run the football. Generally speaking, in order to run the football, you need to have a competent offensive line. Now, what Robert has said, and very clearly and articulated very well, is he is missing his left tackle, his right tackle, and his interior offensive line is not great. To begin with. And so if their runs typically went to the outside on the right and the outside on the left, because their two bookend tackles are all pro, like they were having that sort of trajectory. Mm-hmm. And after the Steelers, those guys can barely walk, which is literally where both of them are at right now. And their main quarterback, the guy who would typically then be looked at to be the savior of the team to try to make throws, et cetera, is basically in a walking boot and is looking at his foot and saying, I can't feel my toes. I don't think you're looking for time of possession anything except for how much is each of those three players going to spend time on the bench? What is that time of possession? Mm-hmm. And more importantly, is it going to be the right cheek or the left cheek that goes numb first while sitting on it?
Or how quickly can
that's
you get
the real question, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, and I don't think I'm being, too negative there either. I mean, that's the state that you're in right now. Like, that's not even me being like, haha, I'm going to rub salt in the wound for the Chargers. That's literally your injury report right now.
Yeah, our injury report right now is a paragraph.
It's actually worse than that. No, it's actually worse than that. Because the dude that would typically step in for either of those two tackles is also on the injury report.
Is also hurt. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, this is why, I mean, it's just reiterating the fact, like, I get it's a division game, and you obviously, these are almost like worth 2, essentially, in the standings. Mm-hmm. But I think the fact that we play a division game coming out of the bye is even more so of a reason why you should just sack this one and try your absolute hardest to get ready and healthy for that next one. Because A, that second one you're playing is against a rookie QB, and ultimately, let's be real, you're going to have more of a chance at winning that one than you were against Mahomes and the Chiefs. And B, if you do force or press the issue against the Chiefs and really try to force your way, you risk Herbert getting injured long-term or worse for the entire rest of the season, and then there's really no point in doing anything because there's no point in anything for the season. You might as well just tank and take the top-rated interior lineman in next year's draft or the top-rated wide receiver. But it's that's kind of where we're at, unfortunately. I know Charger fans don't want to hear it, but that is the best course of action right now for the team. Like it or not, that's kind of where we're at right now. We have a real shot after starting. These are the advantages to starting 2-0 today, or 2-0 to start the season, is because if you fall on back-to-back. Easy, dude.
He's on fire.
He's killing it, man.
Simply too good.
He's on one today. Oh man, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. You know, these are the advantages to starting 2-0. You're able to fall back-to-back games like this, and your season isn't necessarily over. I know going into the season, I was like, oh my god, we have an early bye, lovely. Now I'm looking at it like, oh my god, thank god we have an early bye. We need it badly. Judge seeing from where everybody's at right now.
So Jack, I want to throw over to you real quick. I'm thinking of a quick summary, and you may not even want to add anything to it. The Raiders were thinking they were going to win that game. They didn't. They are moving ahead to the next game and hope that they turn things around. Is that about it?
Well, yeah, that is pretty much about it. I think they changed jerseys or something, because I expected exact opposite. You know, they must have changed jerseys. It was
Andy Dalton is inevitable, dude. He's like
the red rifle.
The red rifle. You know, I said this in the last show. He was 3-0 against the Raiders, and now he's 4-0. He has 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions to any of the Raiders teams. So he's got their number. That team just looks so different than from what, you know, we've seen it before. And when they asked AP, like, what was good about the game, or any of your players, you said none. Nobody was good. And Jack, I had to kind of dig, you know, a little bit.
Jack, I really want your take on one thing. You mentioned
Sure.
AP's comment. I'd like to know your thoughts on AP's comment just before the game. Okay.
Before the game or after the game? The one after the game was pretty big.
No. Well, no, that was a big thing, but I actually think the bigger thing was the one before the game. AP in the presser prior to the game was told by a reporter and asked a question about if his game plan has changed now that Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback, and what was AP's response?
AP's response was that he had a lot of tape on him.
I'm not even a Raiders fan, and I was like this. Like my jaw was on the floor.
Well, he also said, "Hey, the head coach, you know, in Marvin Lewis, you know, his assistant coach drafted him. So it's like, you know, who's gonna know him the best? Him." And and I will say this: that pocket, talk about no pressure.
Dude.
I mean, watching that game, he did not move off his spot. I think one time. So when you give a quarterback experience,
completion,
80% completion percentage.
He was 26 for 37. I mean, that's up there. 300
yards passing and 3 touchdowns with 80% is criminal against that defense.
Absolutely
criminal.
I mean, it was bad. I mean, this is the first time the defense played just as bad as the offense, and the offense was absolutely horrible as well too. I mean, early in the game, you lose your starting right tackle in Mumford. You put rookie Glaze in there, which he did all right, you know, for his very first start. And then something else. It's like AP does things that I just don't get. So your best offensive lineman the whole season, and you know, I'm not a huge PFF guy, but Robert, like you said, when you look at the offensive lineman, you know, that's kind of one of the things you kind of go to. Their best offensive lineman is their right guard in Parham. And in Whitehair, I think he's like an 80-something, 81, you know, going into the game. And then you got Whitehair is like 48. And then they bring in JPJ. And you pull Parham, and he hasn't played anything on that side at all. He wasn't even looked to be that way. He's always talked about this season left guard. Next season, probably taking over for Andre James going to center, which that's what he was All-American at. But no, they put him in for Parham, and he had 21 snaps, gave up 1 pressure. But why would you not put him on the left-hand side with the guy who's playing horrible football? So that made no sense to me either. And nobody, I mean, absolutely nobody on this team looked good. So the things that we got out of it is Marcus Epps. He tore an ACL. He's out for the year. Max Crosby, which, they didn't really talk about, the second to last play against the Ravens, he got a high ankle sprain. And he was out there. So just like your boy Singleton, these are the type of guys that you want on your team playing with a high ankle sprain. And they recognized, early in the game that Max wasn't Max. And so they were able to, at first they were doing quick passes, and then they just kept pushing a little further out, a little further out, a little further out. The run game, absolutely horrible. Oh, plus, Kuntz, we already had lost. We lost Diablo. So we got 3 starters out, and then Max with the high ankle sprain. So, yeah, that defense is definitely not looking like the defense that
you had another guy
we
that
thought.
went out, did you not?
Who?
I thought you had another D lineman go out.
Well, we had Trey or Wilson, but he came back.
Okay.
Defensive end. He came back this game, but he hasn't shown it for a number 7 overall pick. He's like to me, reminds me like it'd be good if it was like a defensive back, because you don't hear his name at all. But if you're on a defensive end and you don't hear your name at all, you're not doing anything. So, yeah, I don't see any promise. It's kind of sad, doing Raiders, chats and stuff, when Raider fans are saying, "Oh, Cleve Farrell might have been better than Tyree Wilson," which that is really sad. And then going to the running game, the Raiders running. Oh, and the last thing on the defense, I think the Raiders have given up like 130 yards a game. I mean, I think they got to be like last in the league in stopping the run. And I think we're second to last in the league in getting runs. And they did change up on the offense. They tried to go from the zone block to the power blocking scheme. That didn't work either. It's just the offensive line is trash. Raider Nation's calling for Gatsby to get fired. It was bad. So yes, I'm glad that game is over. It was like one of the hardest games to watch. But I will say this is the 3rd year in a row where we've had a game like this. So last year it was the Bears. And the year before that, it was the New York Giants. So 3 years in a row, games that, we look like we're going to crush it, and we get crushed. So let's move on. I'm ready for the Browns.
Sorry, Wilkins was a player I was thinking of who is a key cog for you guys who is hurt now.
Absolutely.
And so that's just that was the player I was thinking of.
Well, no, he wasn't hurt.
I want to talk about Cowtown's comment here below, and then I want your take on what I'm about to say and his comment as well, just in general. 12, look, AOC 12 has got some promise. He really does. However, in order for a pocket passer to succeed, you have to have an offensive line that is solid. Like, you have to have a solid offensive line, because they need a clean pocket, and then they need an offense that can start building upon itself and moving itself down the field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, the Raiders, as they have demonstrated this season, and Jack, this is not meant to be an underhanded jab to my division.
That's all right. Jab away.
It is even in the games that the Raiders have looked good in or won, their offensive line has still had issues, like across the board. And let's be honest, I'm not even saying that the Broncos have a better offensive line. I'm just simply saying that the Raiders have had offensive line struggles.
Well, let's just put it this way, Richie.
That's just the fact.
You got to look at this. We've got 3 games under our belt. The Raiders' offense looked good for a quarter and a half against the Ravens, and that is it. It's been like the Raiders will go, "Oh, we want to be a running team. Let's run on first down. We get 2 yards. Oh, let's run again on second down. Get a yard or 2." So now it's 3rd down and 7, 3rd down and 8. Now the defensive, players are pinning their ears back, and they're just going after it. And it's like over and over and over again. What this team kind of, what I'd like to see, which hasn't worked for us, is the 12 personnel. I haven't seen the 13 personnel since really game 1. The spreading out the 4 wide has actually been the thing that's worked the best for the Raiders, and they haven't really been doing that either. Or when they're doing it when the game is out of hand, And again, the defense is just pinning their ears back and just going after Minshew.
Yeah.
And to answer the question in the way of, I think, kind of what Cowtown is like talking about, again, it was garbage time. And AOC 12 came in. I think he was 9 for 12. But I'm sure the Carolina players, which are really all not all that great any in the first place, I'm sure their backups or their backups to the backups were all playing at that point because the game was completely out of hand. So why risk any more of your starters?
No, it was. I actually watched that back end of that game. What people forget is stats in the back portion of games where a team is up like 1 or 2 scores. They're playing prevent defense. So what they're doing is they're saying, we are happy for you to take 5-yard chunks down the field. Happy for it. Go for it.
Absolutely.
You know what we're going to do, though? We're not letting you get the 20-yard bomb. We're not letting you get those 15, 20-yard runs, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I think what too many people are not being objective about is they're not assessing what they saw on film, and they're not looking at what the Panthers defense was doing and or allowing AOC 12 to do when he was on the field.
In Cowtown, I did watch that game. Actually, they weren't showing it. They were showing, I think was it the Chargers game? So I ended up having to leave and go to a bar and hang out with some friends and watch it. But yeah, it was bad. And you're right, Richie. That's another point. It is soft. It's all prevent. So they're going to give up all the underneath, short stuff. So
one play does not make an entire defensive scheme for the entire back half of the game. Thanks. Bye.
But, but here's something, that, if you talked about the question before the game. So the question after the game and, AP doing his presser, he said that players are making business decisions, meaning that they are not going in there and they're not trying their best and they're not tackling. So it's like, okay, well, now that you said that, AP, now there's going to be a riff. And like, who are those players? Pat McAfee thinks it's Jack Jones. You get all these guys looking at the film. He hasn't sent anybody yet, but it's going to be interesting when it comes game time, who's starting, who's not starting.
Yeah, my only question to you, Jack, is I know we're super early in the season and it's only week 3, but would you say this is the kind of loss where you start looking at making a coaching change at the head coach level?
Well, not a head coach, but I wouldn't. I can't argue with Gespy. Gespy is. We haven't done anything. We got 1 quarter and a half.
How many offensive touchdowns do you guys have this year? 4?
Not much.
Not many.
I think it was
3,
1 in the
3.
It's the running game, dude. It's Getsky in the running game. I think I said it last week. I mean, the Bears didn't have a good running attack outside of Justin Fields, in the 2 years he was calling offense there. And it just, for whatever reason, just whatever he likes to do or scheme up just doesn't work. And it sucks for me because I took Zamir White in quite a bit of my fantasy leagues. So I'm wearing that egg on my face right now. Oh, yeah.
Well, with the Bears, they were a good running team, but it all came from their quarterback.
Yeah, and it wasn't designed play. It was like broken down, busted protections and things like that. That Fields is just an athlete enough that made it look, but made it work. And then he turns around and says,
old Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and he turns around and is like, I produced this offense that had 1,400 rushing yards. Look at me, and it's like, well, did you? Because Gardner Minshew, for as much of an athletic prowess as he has, he's not going to be doing stuff like that. And every time I watch the Raiders games, that's just the biggest issue is they can't get anything going with the run.
Oh, not at all. It's like I said, I think they're 31st in the league. So yeah. And again, we talked about like Zeus is like, oh, he's not a good zone running. So they tried, do more power. Yeah. It didn't help at all. So
you need to have the personnel to run power though too, right? Like when you're
you got to have the big boys, which I think Thayer, Mumford, and Miller are like the only 2 guys that really can do it on that offensive line. JPJ, if you get him in there, I don't care what scheme you run. I think that kid can do both. But again, Why put him on the right side? That's not what anything. He's not designed for that. And get rid of your best offensive guard, take him out. And AP said it was designed. It was like planned before the game. It still doesn't make sense. So things that he kind of does are questionable.
The only thing
I
is
hope he improves his game.
hurt. What if he was hurt? Like he's got
He
some
wasn't hurt.
injuries, right?
That was the first thing that everybody thought, but he wasn't hurt.
I'm trying to give some form of grace to the.
I know, but there is no grace.
Yeah,
there is no grace.
It was just a straight up just beaten.
No,
honestly, it was a trap. It's a trap. It was a trap game. Like every team, every year there's a team that the game you're going into that you're just so absolutely positive that your team's going to win, and then it just goes to the total opposite direction. I mean, Chiefs have won like every year. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, they got completely embarrassed by the Colts.
Please be next week. Please be next week.
Yeah, hope not. But I mean, that's just what it was. And I honestly, the Panthers played totally different than they did in the 2 weeks before that. Like actually seemed to help out their quarterback and try to run the ball and totally different approaches than they did with Bryce Young. So it just it was a perfect recipe for a bad thing to happen.
Yeah.
I just want to point
So
out
Alex,
somebody in the chat last week said.
Let's finish off the.
yeah.
Last thing, Alex, do you still have Tucker?
Oh yeah.
He had a garbage timer.
He was probably one of the bright spot. 7 for 62, one touchdown.
Yeah. No, he's had a couple good fantasy outings. I just can't quite bring myself to do that yet, but at some point we will.
So on that note, since he's on your fantasy team, let's hear about your Chiefs.
Oh yeah. I guess I'll have some sense of positivity after that little pity party we just rode through. But the game, I'd say went about as expected. I knew it was going to be a hard-fought win, especially with the Falcons coming off their win against the Eagles, and Cousins kind of, looked like he's more vintage Kirko, and he was dicing up at good parts of this game. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same narrative with the Chiefs last year, and just defense is showing up at the right times to bail out some poor offensive play. And if they're able to win games like that this early in the season, there's hope that with how things have gone, things could certainly pick up and everything gets humming at the right time. But Mahomes honestly didn't play that great of a game. He hasn't really played that great at this point of the year. Hasn't really been a whole lot of big explosive plays like we thought we would have. I think part of that is with Hollywood Brown being out, as well as Worthy is still very new to the team and a rookie. But if you go watch the film, there's plenty of opportunities where Worthy is open. And I don't know if it's just Mahomes' timing with him is just not quite there yet. As a matter of fact, he was open on the pick he threw. He just underthrew it and let Justin Simmons pick him off for the 15th time in his career, whatever the hell it was. That one was on Mahomes. Just with some of it's, I think, a timing thing. But I also think there's a very big emphasis on just taking what the defense is giving them. And that's why you see this kind of decline with Kelsey right now. A bigger emphasis on kind of driving the offense through the run game. Shout out to Carson Steele. I know that was kind of my reservation going into the game, was how different would this offense look without Pacheco kind of being the saving grace of keeping things moving forward. But Carson Steele, he came out there and was almost just the same type of guy. You got the same type of explosiveness out of him at the right time. He averaged 4.2 a carry. They still gave it to him 17 times. So, we're able to kind of keep the status quo in that regard of utilizing the run game. kind of controlling the
4-2 at
clock.
Perry is amazing.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
4-2 that's fantastic.
yeah, I mean he exceeded what I expected from him, and honestly, they exceeded how I anticipated them using him. We'll see how that goes moving forward because they did officially call Kareem Hunt up this week. So, but I think at this point it's kind of his spot to lose with how he's played so far. Protected the football, had fumbling issues in the first 2 weeks, and I mean didn't have any of that. Kind of a cool story to it. He had to play that game during his sister's wedding because they set this booked it a year ago, not thinking he'd be in the NFL, and it's like, hey, sorry. I got a Sunday night game, but I think that was kind of just a cool story on it. But great performance from him. I mean, offensively, like I said, really worried about the lack of explosive plays, but at the same time, like they're moving the ball, they're really efficient, and they're getting points when they need to. And defensively, I mean, kind of continued the same dominance they had last year. Bend don't break in some points of the game, but like I said, when they need to show up, they do. Some of that may be due to the extension of the team, the refs, sure, but or just for whatever reason, the Falcons deciding to call some dumbass halfback toss that hadn't worked all game on 4th and 1. But shout out to Nick Bolton for making that stop, and shout out to the defense for, like I said, showing up when they need to. And I mean, at the end of the day, a win is a win, and for them to get these hard fought, wins against what have been pretty good teams so far this year, with Mahomes not playing too good, like not too much to be upset about.
Never be upset at 3-0.
Nah, I really can't. Really can't.
Alex, I got a question for you. With Kareem Hunt coming back, and just the past that he had, in Kansas City, and being when he was at his A game, and getting released, and now he's back. You release him when he's at a pinnacle based on what he did, but what is the fan base think of this? Again, getting cut, but now bringing him back. I mean, what does that say?
I think it just kind of it fits Andy Reid's vibe. He's very, I think you hear it all the time. He's very much a player's coach and a second chance guy. And I mean, for as long as Kareem Hunt has not been on the Chiefs, there's always been rumblings every year of like, let's bring Kareem back. So I think it was kind of a inevitable thing. Even this past free agency, I mean, everyone was pushing for that. So, I mean, I think he'll be embraced. It's unfortunate he's not the same player he was when he was here because, I mean, who knows where his career could have been if none of that stuff happened and he stayed because he was crushing it in his first 2 years. But, yeah, I mean, I'm, for one, excited to see him back in a Chiefs uniform and excited to see, what he can bring to the offense. And, I always kind of I always think of there's a viral video of Kareem when he got arrested. I think he got a traffic stop, but he's in the back of a cop car on Super Bowl Sunday breaking down because he's not playing in the game. He's like, I messed my life up, man. I should be playing in the Super Bowl right now. So I think that's kind of a cool full circle moment for him to come back. And if everything goes right and they do all their goals, he'll get that Super Bowl. I mean, because that is what they're trying to do, right? Is be the first team to three-peat. So, it's kind of the perfect scenario all around. And I think Chiefs Kingdom's pretty hyped about it as well. And I guess, I'll address some of the, here we go. Richie got right into that one. I think that should have been a call on Kyle Pitts. I'm not going to act like it wasn't a penalty. And the refs obviously didn't give a great explanation. They just said from our angle and in real time, it didn't look like a penalty. whatever. Yeah, he's definitely at that bourbon. I need the NyQuil to kick in now.
Oh,
He's about, fingers getting real heavy. Can't type soon.
oh man.
No, but I think it should have been called. And even with that, Falcons still had a chance to win the game, and they did kind of give him a makeup call on the PI they called on McDuffie, which was totally ridiculous. But I mean that stuff happens. Like Chiefs lost to the Packers last year for a very similar egregious call that didn't happen on a PI at a play at the end of the game. It happens. I'm not gonna act like shouldn't have been called or sit here and say it wasn't a penalty. I think it was, but it is what it is. That's part of the game. And for all the people that just want to, I mean, it also comes with the continuous winning because. I mean, once you keep winning, like people got to find some reason to discredit that, and you can't say they're bad because they keep winning. So it's got to be the refs that are helping them, which that sucks. At a situation like that doesn't help that narrative. But at the end of the day, like that, as part of the game, it happens across the board. Should have been called, but it is what it is. Not really much else I can say about it.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, is the way I look at it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But I do also think that there is a legitimate observation and comment to be made that those quarterbacks that are in the upper tier of the NFL. So, I mean, obviously Mahomes is, if he's not at the pinnacle, then someone is making a mistake at that point. So he's at the upper echelon, at the peak of the NFL right now, right? And so the NFL is wanting to put the best product they possibly can on the field. And that, like, at the end of the day, I have to say there's been some honesty coming from Roger Goodell as well as others saying that there's a combination of business and football. And I was like, wait a minute, that's the first time that's ever been said out of a commissioner's mouth. And I think that's a fair way to look at what we're seeing on the field, which is it is absolutely fair to think that the NFL has said something to the refs to say, we can't lose Patrick Mahomes, so don't let the dude get rocked. And if someone rocks him, even if it's close, throw the laundry. I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying from a business perspective, that is bad business for the NFL to lose a guy of Patrick Mahomes's absolute caliber across the league. It's the same reason why you saw the same thing with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. More so Tom Brady than Peyton Manning, but Tom Brady certainly got calls that made you scratch your head and say, really?
They changed the rule for Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
He was out for a whole year. I mean, just like they changed the rule for Aaron Rodgers, once he was out with the collarbone thing. I mean, that brought on this wave of like, don't land on a quarterback with your weight. I mean, they definitely, those players definitely get those calls, more prone to them. But Kirk Cousins got a call like that in that game too. So, I don't know that it really is favored to one side or the other, especially when it comes to the quarterback, because I think there's such a big safety component with them that it seems like that's where the most of the head scratching calls come from when they, push a guy down or sling him down. When like back in the day, that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, there's also other rules that just come out, the closet from nowhere, like the tuck rule. It's like, I don't think have any of you guys heard of that rule before it was called? I mean, that was crazy.
No.
And then what, a year or so later? Oh, they get rid of it.
Overturned.
Never should have had it.
Yeah. So it sounds like last week we saw some results we weren't expecting. And sadly, for some of our divisional teams, injuries have now started to creep in. My Denver Broncos, obviously Robert's Chargers, which is sadly, I hate to admit, is par for the course for your team, Robert.
Shocker.
It just
Tell me about
it is what it is. Like, there's a surprise.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. And then, color me powdered blue. It's, it seems to be a pretty common occurrence, sadly, for your Chargers. And it'll be interesting to see where we land this upcoming week. With that in mind, I'll kick things off again with just a brief look ahead to the Broncos game against the Jets, which is, that'll do it.
Yeah,
Man.
Yeah. If you hit yourself in the foot, you'll be just like Justin Herbert.
DZ comments this episode.
Yeah, I mean, if DZ hits himself in the foot a couple times, he'll be just like Justin Herbert, so it'll be fine.
such
soon, Robert?
bullshit, man. God damn it.
Too soon, Robert? Too soon? Sorry. Anyways, look ahead to the Jets. The Jets are looking generally healthy. They have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, generally, by and large. He's obviously an older quarterback, but he's certainly got the mental capability of slicing and dicing defenses. I actually think that, kind of like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, Rodgers is kind of at that stage of his career where there's nothing he hasn't seen, but he probably doesn't have the same mobility. He's probably feeling it more a little bit after games, et cetera, just due to age. But because he's been around for so long, he kind of has the answer sheet, right? Like, it's like, you cannot show me a look that I have never seen before. Good luck with that, right? Yeah. And so then the question is, do you just have the talent on your team? I do think this is an interesting game for my Denver Broncos. I think that our defense is good enough, like all around, as long as some of the guys are not hurt, that we can actually put the screws to Rodgers and kind of force him to make throws and or throwaways, which will stall drives. That's the big thing. Throws or throwaways, because that's his shtick. He doesn't want to throw the interception, so he'll throw it away so he doesn't throw the interception. But that still means that you've wasted a down, which is, fine by me. Go for it. If you want to throw away on third down and turnover on downs, that works for me too. Gets my offense back on the field. Bye. So I think that that's something that we could see from the Jets, and I think that the Denver Broncos defense is playing well enough. And I don't think the Jets have quite made enough improvements on their offensive line to go all the way. They've done great things, don't get me wrong. They've made huge improvements on their offensive line year over year from last year to this year. I just don't think they've made quite enough to make the biggest difference there to stifle a 7-sack team from the week prior. Like, the Bucs offensive line is a pretty solid unit. They're not like world beating, but they're a solid unit.
They got one of the best left tackles in the league.
Yeah. And the Broncos pretty much ate them alive on the defensive side of the ball. And so I really think that the Broncos do have some answers to some stuff. I do think we have a much better defense than people initially gave us credit for. And I have this as another one of those predictions that I had for the Bucs game. I am adjusting this slightly based on the play that I saw from Bo Nix. I think that he can build on this. I think there's a bit of a confidence boost that a rookie quarterback gets from that first win against a team that everyone was predicting that they weren't supposed to win. Like, no one had the Bucs. Exactly. And so I have this as a 3-point win, or anywhere from a 3 to a 7-point win for my Denver Broncos. I actually think we beat the Jets this game, and I think that it's the defense combined with Bo's slight bump in confidence that will see us being able to carry this game to a victory. I initially did not have us winning this game when I started the season, so this is me adjusting things as I'm seeing play on the field and the offense adjust properly to fit the skill set and the players that we have. 12 and 13 personnel, forcing the run, Bo Nix seeing the field a little bit better. What we saw this game was a connection between Sutton and Bo Nix that wasn't there for the first 2 games, where back shoulder throws, ball placement was improved. These are all things that you want to see continue for the rookie quarterback. I am going out on a little bit of a limb here and saying that Bo Nix has started to progress, and this will be very telling whether or not I'm right or wrong.
So you're a believer.
No. Well, I actually always thought that Bo Nix was the answer for the Broncos. I just didn't think that the progression
Not
was
this
going to
soon.
be quite that quickly. I didn't think he was going to level up as fast as I think he might be doing right now. This is such an interesting time for the Denver Broncos for me, because as I'm analyzing what I'm seeing on tape and on film, I'm like, he could have made a similar throw to that in week 1, but he failed, but he made it this week. I was like, okay, like that's cool. However, what's he going to do with defensive pressure? What's he going to do like when it's back? Like when he's got a dude in his face, is he going to continue to, analyze and assess? Or is he going to say, dude, that guy's 330 pounds. He's running a 4.4. I might die. Right. Like I don't know which Bo Nix we're seeing on the field right now. This game for me is going to be probably more telling from my perspective than the Bucks game, because they haven't told me that like Quinton Johnson's out, for example. Right? Like the best players for the Jets are at this point going to play. Great. Now what are we going to see? How bad or good is this going to be for both the offensive line and everything else?
Are you thinking Quentin Johnson or Quentin Williams? You think of the defensive tackle for the
Sorry,
Jets?
I meant Williams.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Williams. Williams.
I was just gonna let that one go. I knew what you meant, though.
Yeah.
I was I was reaching. I'm like,
Joe
oh, man.
Montana's a quarterback.
No, that's correct. That's who I meant. But
He said Quentin Montana.
He's a great tackle. He is a disruptor in the middle of the field.
He's above Vita Vea, but yeah, similar guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Well, like you're saying, Rich, it was kind of like an unexpected. You weren't sure Bo Nix was going to be able to grasp it, as quickly as he is right now, or at least that's the trajectory that he's shown through the first 3 games. But I, for one, said it since the start. Regardless of what happened, this was the right move for the Broncos. There was no debate about what you should have done. I'm back on this train. Bo Nix was going to give you better than anything. Rookie Bo Nix, raw rookie Bo Nix was going to give you miles better than what Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham were going to give you. And this is exactly what you wanted to see 3 weeks through the season. He's learning from previous mistakes. He's improving week after week. I think this is I'm with you on this week. I think they win this week straight up against the Jets. I think that defense holds Rodgers and the run game to subpar what they've been all season. I think Bo Nix, although it's going to be a good defense, this will be a classic case of maybe not much points scored in the first half, but second half, Peyton makes some adjustments, kind of, is seeing what the defense is giving him. And I think that they're going to, slowly but surely win this game. But this is exactly what you wanted to see. And I hated it, or I hate to see it, because it's a division rival. And no, you were supposed to be hopefully, after 2 weeks, bottom of the division, and it's basically just us and the Chiefs. But now, obviously the Broncos have always had a real the Broncos have always had a real defense. That's never been
Isn't Bud Light water?
Yeah. Totally water.
Totally water.
Water.
This is
Obviously,
a proper beer.
Obviously, this is what the Broncos were hoping for when starting Nix. You know, you see that gradual growth in your QB, and ultimately you just hope he gets better and better and better each week. So, like I said, we already knew the Broncos defense was legit. It was just a matter of, can their offense not turn the ball over and maintain a level of consistency. And you know, I think we started to see that what I think the best version of the Broncos can be last week.
Yeah.
They got to go win the Hackett Bowl, man.
Yeah, I mean,
we must disgrace Hackett.
I think the biggest thing, obviously, the Broncos are looking at and what they're going to be addressing after this season is that O-line. Is can they put a solid O-line in front of Nix, give them some time to throw, and give the run game after this season.
Oh, after the season, they're going to have
to.
But
after the season.
The point is that right now, there's there's a reason why you're seeing 12 and 13 personnel having to be the way that the Broncos go, right?
I need them to throw to Dulcich, though.
You and Dulcich.
They give him no targets ever. Stop with Trotman. Stop it.
Look, here's the problem, Alex. Weird Al needs to actually catch the ball.
Yeah. I just got him sitting in the stable waiting to come out. He just needs a few targets. Come on.
He can't, like, this is the problem, is the dude can't block, so you can't put him in as an inline blocker in a 12 or 13 personnel set. And if you put him in any set now at this point, the only thing he is a glorified wide receiver. And on top of that, when they have targeted him, he's dropped the ball enough times where he's no longer a reliable target.
Yeah. So you're saying I should get rid of him?
Yes.
Damn it. All right.
Like,
all right.
Like in my opinion, no, like in my opinion, I think what you're going to see is a guy like Troutman, Atkins, even Kroll coming in and doing more.
Yeah, well,
like, don't get me wrong.
He's just going down the depth chart right now there, Alex. He's dropping.
Kroll has the ability, Dulcich has the ability to be an absolute game changer, but he's not catching the ball properly.
This is just a wonderful little story right here.
Oh my god.
Cowtown, I agree. But that's for a different you know.
Oh yeah. He is he's turning the ball over a lot. That's no bueno.
Well, yeah. Jalen is hurting. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so's the entire Chargers roster.
All right.
So that's kind of where I'm at with the Broncos Jets. I actually think this is going to be Broncos defense kind of not bailing out the team again, but certainly keeping my team competitive against the Jets. I think that the offensive line for my Broncos will show some elements of some struggles, because I think the Jets defensive line is actually a much better one with everyone being healthy than the Bucs was when we faced them this past week. So you're certainly not going to end up with the surprise blowout win that we saw against the Bucs with the Broncos. I do think that the Broncos are going to look more competitive than was originally expected against the Jets, because I do think that Bo's going to get that kind of bump. But ultimately, I see this being kind of a 3 or 7 point game, and I am reluctantly picking my Broncos to win, as I said earlier, because I actually think that Bo has the potential to use that as a kind of a young man's kind of confidence booster, right? Where, you know, he's going to kind of play above where he should be, given the fact that he won a game he was likely thinking he shouldn't have. And I think that will allow him to elevate himself. Now, it'll be very interesting to see kind of where this game lands. I could well be completely wrong, and at which point I will also then recalibrate kind of where I'm at with my team. But we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. With that in mind, I'm going to throw over to Robert and his half-fielded Chargers team with him and Alex.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I was much more excited for this matchup about a week ago. Yeah, I am nowhere near as excited now. This is just straight pain and suffering. I don't expect us to do anything really in this game.
Damn.
And I know you're going to try to play it down. I know it's a division game, so anything could happen. I get all that. But barring J.K. Dobbins and this run game going absolutely berserk for 200, 250 plus, I don't see really any other way in which this team wins. I don't see a scenario in which Taylor Heineke leads this team to a victory, let alone he has to do it without both his starting tackles. And guard. Yeah, and so like we mentioned earlier, the interior offensive line is already suspect to begin with. You would think.
Hey, Robert, anything can happen. The Raiders lost to the Panthers, so anything can happen.
You know what? Yeah. No. This DZ's got the right idea. I don't even know who the backup QB is.
Carson Wentz.
Oh yeah, Carson Wentz. Yeah, Carson Wentz is gonna be out there. You know what, NFL Nation? They won't even have to beat the Zebras.
Oh, come on, ref.
There won't even be enough of it to be a close game for the Zebras to have any effect on this. I see this game easily 27-35-10. I think it's just going to be an absolute blowout. I mean, there's just the best case scenario is everybody is benched and they just go into the bye week, get that extra rest. Can
I hear the word tank?
No, it's not tanking.
He's already said it.
It's not tanking. Tanking would be we're just giving up on the season. But I just think with these back-to-back games against division rivals and you're beat up to all hell, I mean, shit, at least get one of your tackles back to have a chance. I mean, damn, both. Come on.
You can start Leatherwood. Or I used to call him Leatherface when he was on the Raiders.
We might as well just roll out like a high school kid at that point because it's going to be the same effect. But yeah, I see 27-35-10. It's not going to be close. Just bench everyone. Please keep everyone healthy. Give yourselves a chance this season, and in 2 weeks against the Broncos against that hellacious defense. But yeah, Alex, I don't know what more you're gonna have to add, but it's that's what it's shaping up to be.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough position for the Chargers to be in. But I will take my Bill Belichick approach. They're playing great football. Anything could happen. They're playing really great football. All the players really stand out on film, so it's gonna be a tough game. No, I mean, I would agree with you. A bunch of backups. It's going to be hard to do much against Casey's defense or the refs. So, we got both of those. I think really the big factor, and if it is really, I truly do think it's going to come down to a Harrison Butker kick because that's just it. AFC West game. That's how most of them have gone. The biggest factor will be, getting to the 35-27 realm you're talking about for the Chiefs. I would think would be one, if Kelsey has some sort of coming out party and goes for 100 yards and a touchdown, are they able to bring back some of these big chunk explosive plays with Worthy or someone else? So other than that, though, I do think it will be a hard, tough, a hard, close game in terms of the score. But
What the fuck?
Oh,
$50, Robert. Come on.
Shit.
damn,
You're
Robert.
better than that. You're better than that.
They're going to need you in Las Vegas. Watson's coming to
Glazed
town.
honey bun, dude.
God,
Glazed
dude.
honey bun. That's great. You don't say that
Holy
about
shit.
Roberto.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, I will say though, I think if it is a close game, that would be, in all seriousness, to get off of Robert's rub and tug side hustle here. If it is a close game, I think that'd be a pretty big testament to just how much Harbaugh has shifted the culture and how much of a better coach team it is. Because with last year we saw
the name Robert.
Yeah.
We have Robert Kraft. Robert.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Robert comes with massage. Yep.
Yeah.
Deshaun. No, I'm just kidding. What?
Jeez.
Deshaun. So I'm saying you can get a ticket to Vegas. Deshaun will be there for you. I heard the 30% more massage parlors, opened up this week. So
Jeez. So on that note, yeah, that's how the Chiefs will massage their way to victory.
Jesus Christ!
Robert
Keep
Tubbs.
going. My God. Oh man.
So what do you have the score at?
13-10. Harrison Butker field goal to beat the Chargers JV squad.
Oh my God. I'm fucking dying, man.
Oh, that's great. Robin Tuggs.
Oh.
Oh man.
Well, this show went downhill quick.
Oh man.
So,
This is what happens after the Raiders get absolutely
It's after
just
hours.
embarrassed. Oh my God, I'm getting light.
Cupcake.
Oh my God.
Oh.
All right, on that one, Jack. So the
Where's
Raiders,
Cool Kev?
Browns.
Wait.
Oh,
I didn't even. What was your final score that you gave? I didn't even.
I said 13-10. But
13-10? Really? Wow. Okay, that's crazy.
I won.
Oh man.
Okay, sorry, dude. The room was spinning.
shit.
All the.
I don't know. I don't know what you walked into. We all kind of walked
The
into this
room
one.
spinning with all this rub and tugness going around.
I don't know. It's got to be Watson coming to Vegas. That's what's got everyone thinking about it. Yeah, it's going to be every game I picked, I've gotten wrong. So I almost want to change my score to go the opposite
Chiefs.
direction.
Pick the Chiefs.
All right, I will say I have picked the Chiefs to win this one. So
No, Jack. How dare you?
Yeah.
I paid for my own team.
Retract. I strike that from the record, Rich. Get that out of here.
Yeah, I haven't gotten one right. I actually had in the beginning of the year, I had Cleveland coming in and upsetting the Raiders. Totally different teams. Injuries are killing everybody. They're definitely hurting Cleveland right now too. They just lost their starting, offensive guard, Wyatt Teller. He's on IR. They just brought up the tackle Jermaine and Freddie, so he's up. And then, of course, we got to talk about the big dogs. So we got, an injured Max Crosby with the high ankle sprain. And that's tough to play on. I'm glad he's got grit and heart, but, there's to a certain point when you get great players and if they just can't do it. But if you don't have the guys behind you, well, that can help you out either. But we got to talk about Garrett. Garrett, I think he's been hanging out with Herbert. He's got two feet hurt, an Achilles, and a thigh. So.
Damn.
So yeah, he's completely banged up, but supposedly he wants to play, so he's going to be out there hobbling just like Max. And then of course the offensive line for Cleveland, Jarek Willis just came back. Jalen Hudson III did not practice today. Jack Conklin, the right tackle, did not play. And David Ngoku's hurt. So I don't know if he's going to play or not play based on what I saw. So their offensive line is trash. The Raiders' offensive line is trash. But we know the defense from both those teams are good defenses. I see this as a really low-scoring game. And plus, again, is it the offensive line for Deshaun Watson? Or is it, reading articles that Deshaun Watson, can he remember how to play the damn game? His stats are horrible. He's like 551 yards, 57% completions, three touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Well, you'd think he would be greatly relaxed and play well.
Yeah. His
after getting those massages, he should be completely limber.
He said rub, no tug. And then got out of hand.
Oh, so yeah, this is going to be a low scoring affair, and I kind of had to switch my verdict. I had to the Raiders losing this one. I see it really low. I mean, a 3-point game, it's going to come down to a field goal, like 19-16, and it can go either way. But I'm just thinking either way. I mean, I'm looking at what the Raiders have, injury-wise, how bad their offense is, It's just going to take like one turnover. One turnover for this game, one big play. Either team can take it. But it's not going to be an exciting, game to truly watch. I'll say that.
So, unfortunately, Jack, my prediction for this game is inverted to NFL Nation's live projection here. I think, unfortunately, AP has shown that he's missing what he had last year. He's not able to pull you guys across the finish line.
Well, yeah, if they play like they did in Panthers, oh boy, there was no heart. So yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying is that he's kind of missed that spark that he brought last year to the team, right? And so that's the challenge. I kind of see this as a slugfest of sorts in terms of
absolutely.
The game. But I just think the challenge is that AP hasn't shown me, and neither has your offensive coordinator, if I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Oh, great. He might not have a job.
That, I could very much see this getting out of hand with your offense going 3 and out, 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 and a couple turnovers later, and all of a sudden you're down by 14. Right? Like that is certainly a possible option.
It is a possibility because you also look at what Minshew, the last 2 weeks in a row, he threw one behind Devontae. It's like he threw it right to the defender. And then the week before that, he threw it behind. There was nobody. And it was like a lateral. It was a fumble. So it's like half the time, it's like, who are you throwing to? He does complete a lot of passes, but they're short. They're behind the line of scrimmage. So it's like I would like to see more, and I would like to see more of like a 4 wide receiver set.
Yeah. Well, I also think that you guys need to be more creative with your tight ends. I think there's some other options there in terms of
feed Bowers,
like flanking them on either side of your tackles, and then breaking one out on either side to kind of not stacking them both on one side. That kind of stuff. Like I think there's so many options you guys have, and I just don't think Getsy has the creativity to mix and match different offensive schemes. I think he's kind of got kind of a thing.
He came from the Hackett Rogers tree, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, someone had to say it.
Yeah. And you don't have the quarterback IQ or even just time in the league. Like you don't have a veteran quarterback on your team that can actually overcome the efficiency.
DC is on fire.
DC's killing me today, man.
He's on bereavement leave for his cat.
Yeah. Well, the bourbon is helping DZ in his comments. We'll just put it that way.
Oh man.
But You just don't have a veteran quarterback to overcome Getsy's deficiencies and actually check to a play that makes more sense.
Yeah. And well, again, you don't have an offensive line. You don't have a running game, being second worst in the league. And we got coaches, pulling players that got at right guard, and you're putting, our rookie in there when, again, he's like twice the player as Whitehair. Again, it's like a PF rating of 80 versus 43. And why would you pull your best guy on your offensive line the whole year, and instead of the worst guy on your offensive line? So coaching, it's all kind of circular right now. It's starting to feel like, McDaniels a little bit from last year just needs to get some stuff right. And I want to see better things coming out of AP, and stop making comments, which is also going to hurt your locker room in the way of business decisions. Well, keep the business your business and in the locker room, so it's the team's business and not to the Raider Nation. So that way we have stuff to talk about, and then the media talks about it, and it just creates distractions and a division in the locker room itself.
No, I agree with that.
I mean, when you got Devontae coming out and saying the same thing, to back AP, well, then I'm sure whoever is on the other side of that is now going, hey, I don't like that. So,
and then you got him commenting like, yeah, we were trying to draft Jaden Daniels.
Yo, exactly.
It's like, damn, dude.
Yeah. So I know that Alex has got to go off to the lightning fast fantasy podcast. I think we have gone ahead and covered all the games there. Quick little roundtable here to cover off anything that we haven't yet. Do any of us have anything else to add for the upcoming games, players, injuries, or other predictions?
Well, I got one last thing, and then I'll hop off. I think it's going to be kind of cool, though. Amari Cooper, this is going to be, his first game going against the Raiders, since he left the team. So it'll be kind of fun to watch him play. So I'm kind of excited about that. And I really am wanting to see what they will do with JPJ since he got some playing time last game. It's always fun to be able to watch your rookies go. And I want to see Bowers, go back to the first 2 weeks of Bowers. And it wasn't like horrible. I think it was 3 receptions for 41 yards, which I think he's still number 2 in the NFL as a tight end. So I would like to see him target, Bowers a little bit more this game.
No, that's fair, and those are interesting things there for sure. I can't even pull up that DZ comment. It's just the answer is no.
I don't want to get put on a watch list or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a big buzzword these days.
Yeah. So I don't have anything else really to add other than the fact that there will be some changes with the Broncos defense with Singleton being out. So it will be interesting to see that impact there because he was a bit of a solidifying force. Like when you lose the middle of the defense and you have to adjust, it's always a toss-up. Can the guy that's filling in actually fill in, or is it going to be a lesser version by enough of a difference where it's going to impact it? That's going to be a real question mark. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But anyways, I think this week coming up will be somewhat defining in terms of what to expect, because as Robert said, he's got the early bye. You have a potential 2-2 start for the Chargers, given that fact. And then you come right off of that to a divisional rival game coming up off the bye. And really, I guess week 6 will be a bit of a telling point for at least one team, I think, in the division in terms of whether or not there's a bounce back or not. Because I think it's a fair comment to make that, Alex's team will, go 4-0, I think. And
shocker.
There's a surprise. So anyways, when you look ahead, I'm sort of shocked that what are the odds?
It is funny. I had to put that on.
That's funny.
Facts.
So we'll wait and see what happens with all of our teams this upcoming week. It'll be super interesting to recap the show next week to kind of go over what we're seeing. Divisional games are always super fun to watch because no matter where our teams stand and how many injuries we have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they always seem to be closer than we think they should be.
Mhm.
They just always, they always seem to be closer
That's
than they
what
should
I'm
be.
saying.
Yeah.
This week's
So-
won't.
Anyways, guys, with that in mind, we are going to go ahead and leave you for tonight with that. We will recap again next week on Wednesday with the Wild Wild West show, and where the West Side is the best side. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,